Another video. Here we go. I had to go back and change the statements I made earlier about Turkey. It seems as if Erdogan and Turkey are actually, I had to really backtrack because the Turks have proven that they're actually smarter, especially Erdogan, because what he's done essentially is he's been able to take the conflict in Syria and take advantage of that situation with no consequence, no negative consequence for Turkey, I should say, except for a temporary halt in trading with Russia. Besides that, the Turks have really come out of the Syrian conflict bigger and better. They were able to use Salafi terrorists. They were able to allow their country to be used as a entry point, as a land bridge for terrorists from the majority sect of Muslims as well as Salafis. They were able to use it as a transit point. The women who wanted to prostitute themselves to ISIS and other Salafi jihadists were able to also use it as a land bridge. But in addition to that, the Turks received a lot of cut rate oil and other energy resources. For the time ISIS existed, the Turks used it to their advantage for cheap energy. They've been able to use Syria and they're enabling and assisting the Turkish terrorists who are the quote-unquote Turkoman population of Syria as their access point to northwest Syria, and as a force loyal to them. Secondarily, they've also used the Free Syrian Army, which is an oxymoron. But they've been able to use those two forces to weaken Assad, because let's not forget the Turks are in league with the Zionist world order. And one only has to look at history in order to understand that the current Turkish state was founded by a Freemason named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. And as we know from Albert Pike, Freemasonry is beholden to Judaic. So Freemasonry is don't take my word for this. Again, look it up for the benefit of Judaism. Now, with that out of the way, so we had those two factors: cheap energy, but they're also weakening Assad's government or his territorial claim. They've been able to help partition Syria. Israel's also another big winner. Well, actually, I can't say that. They're not big winners, but they've actually made things worse for themselves, but in a way they've also made it better, because now they have the United States with a colonial force not too far from them east of the Euphrates in northeast Syria. So the United States is right there, and they'll be there indefinitely, unfortunately for the Syrians. And they're having peace talks right now, the foreign ministers of, so you have Sergei Lavrov and along with his counterparts from Iran and from Turkey. And what they're doing, and what they're not saying they're doing, is they're essentially carving up Syria. They're agreeing to disagree. And for Iran, I don't blame Iran for this at all, because they can only do so much, being the only independent country in the world without a BIS, Bank for International Settlements, Rothschild Bank, and an independent foreign policy and an independent population that they shield from the ravages of the international economy, which, the global economy is just designed to enslave and impoverish the majority of the world's population. You have the World Bank and the IMF. I can't think of any country from the third world or the global south, we should say the new term global south. So Africa, parts of Asia that have benefited from loans and other financial instruments given to them by the World Bank. So I can safely say that that's what it's for, is to enslave and impoverish. Unfortunately, Syria is the big loser in this. Zarif, the Iranian foreign minister, spoke about how Syria wants peace. They all want peace, and really Syria and Iran do want peace because again they're the only forces that are outside of this global cabal, and they spend real blood and treasure fighting for their right to. Actually, I shouldn't say right to. That's a bad saying, but fighting for their existence, because no one really has a right to exist. No one or no political entity has a right to exist. You exist if you can, as Michael Scheuer says, if you're strong enough to defend yourself, and if you get along with your neighbors, and if you don't get along with your neighbor, if you're strong enough to maintain your existence. So there really is no right to exist. Iran and Syria have to walk a delicate line, and for us individuals who want to see a non-Rothschild controlled world, a non-BIS governed world, the best hope is if Lebanon, Syria, and Iran could maintain or actually enhance their freedom and are able to expand their economies and recover from this devastating war. I feel that Syria should cut its losses and allow these territories to essentially be the Yannan planned balkanized colonies that they want to be. Because what's going to end up happening is that these Salafi and quote-unquote Sunni jihadists, they're not going to be able to govern their territories if they're not assisted by the United States and other regional powers, because they've shown the territory they do gain control over, they provide nothing for the people but abuse. But we have to keep an eye on this situation. Very unfortunate. I don't see any positive outcomes now. The war has been... Syria, I think, has won almost all the territory it can win back. Another good point for the true independent countries, the axis of resistance, is that they have land, the border. Basically, the Syrian government has portions of the border with Iraq under its control. So there is a land access between the three countries that are actually the only independent countries in the region: Iran, Iraq, and Syria. One has the hope that Lebanon gets the idea and aligns itself with the resistance and opposes all the other players in the region, because there's no alternative. The quote unquote Sunnis, the majority sect, they lend themselves to the Zionist plan for the region. And if Lebanon allows itself to be influenced by the majority sect of Islam, it's going to be a bad outcome. The Christians and the Shia and other sects should actually form a coalition government and exclude the Sunnis, the quote-unquote Sunnis. Otherwise, Lebanon is going to be undermined, and eventually, I feel the same trouble they stirred up in Syria and in Libya will reach Lebanon as well, in an effort to weaken or destroy Hezbollah. But the war has only strengthened Hezbollah, because not only they know how to fight defensive battles now, they actually gained experience in offensive warfare against maniacs who are willing to kill themselves. So it's actually enhanced Hezbollah. Now, I think that about covers it. Syria's partition, as I said it was going to be. Russia did a lot to not participate fully in getting rid of the terrorists at the beginning. We got to remember, Russia was always tying Assad's hands at crucial moments. From the moment Russia got involved, it should have been full throttle, maximum force, along with Assad and Iran and their allies, the militias and the popular mobilization units. Russia should have basically done a two-pronged attack against ISIS, from Iraq with the popular mobilization units, with Iran and Iraq, because Iran sent advisors, along with the irregulars Iran sends to the region. You know, there should have never been pauses. There should have never been safety corridors, because from the beginning, all these efforts to quote-unquote reach peace have been used by the terrorists to retool, re-equip, and get more Salafi terrorists and Salafi prostitutes, like women who go there to marry these maniacs. And all their marriages are they demonize Shia Muslims for temporary marriage, yet they practice it. I think that about covers it. Syria's partitioned, and we have to hope that a state of normality returns to the government-controlled areas, and they continue to strengthen themselves along with the resistance, because otherwise the Rothschild colony will take the entire territory, and once that happens, there'll be no more independent countries, because the next dominoes to fall will be Cuba and North Korea. I think that's what this thing with Trump going to North Korea is. They'll get a Rothschild bank installed in North Korea some way, somehow. North Korea is too heavily dependent on China to be totally independent like Iran. So that's another leverage they have against North Korea. They actually need China to work with them. But that's it for now.